Hello, my dear friends. It's great to see you. I'm Stephen Clements, a writer, a gamer, and appreciator of big brain activities in general. On this channel, I perform dramatic story readings, provide role-playing game and movie reviews, and I get to talk to interesting people. In this episode, we're going to continue on with the dramatic reading of the Memphis Dirty, Tales from the Dirty South short story, The Runner. And last we left off, our protagonist, Maria Conchita Sanchez, had escaped from an attempt on her life after hooking up with a skeezy drug dealer at the Porn King's palace. And in this second part of the short story, the threat will only continue to escalate. Because there's a part 3, that's where the resolution happens. But since we're not there yet, let's bear witness to the trials awaiting Maria now that she's gone on the run. Maria called a cab and custed the driver to race to her friend Enrico's house, a few better neighborhoods away. She launched herself out of the taxi when she saw the cookie-cutter pink brick and poorly landscaped house come into view. It was a late afternoon, and when Enrico saw the glistening piece of hotness that was Maria at his door, he opened it wide. "Hey, sugar, what brings you by?" Enrico finished, mouthing a silent kiss at her. She said nothing, instead rushing past him away from the painful rays of the lingering sun. She looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. "Somebody shot Gabriella." Enrico wasn't expecting this kind of visit and leaned back, his wife-beater undershirt pulling up to show off his mulatto midriff. "Baby, where's this get-together going?" Tears streaming down her face, she shrieked back the answer, "Somebody shot Gabriella!" "In the kitchen. Then they came after me." Enrico let it sink in, hanging his head as he leaned back against the island in his kitchen. "I'm sorry. That booty was fat. I never even got to hit that," he sweetly genuflected. Then it hit him. "So what do they want you for?" "They wanted me," Maria said, beginning to gesticulate in exasperation. "They came to the house and they wanted me, but Gabriella got in the way. So they, She trailed off as a catch built up in her throat. She slowly slunk down against the wall of the brightly colored kitchen. What had happened back there was starting to sink in, that her cousin, her only real friend, had been murdered. Gabriella was dead. With all this news in the open and the unlikelihood that a crying whore is going to put out, Enrico's patience let him know the show was over. Suddenly picking up a very businesslike tone, he said, "Well, it's been good to see you. Guess it's time for you to get going." Reaching down, he took Maria by the elbow and helped raise her back up on her feet and out the door. As she was brought back to reality from her misery, confusion swept over her face. "But where am I supposed to go?" she croaked, past the tears and snot working its way down her face. "I don't know, but I gots to go to work, and you've got a lot to think about, so let me help you get on with the healing process," he continued firmly, as his right hand reached to open the door to the outside world. As the late afternoon sun worked its way past the door, the smirk that was about to work its way into Enrico's face got cut short. See, that's when a muffled shot rang out from the street. Crashing through the window, the round left a bloody halo in the middle of Enrico's forehead. His lanky body slumped and fell over, releasing his unkind grip from Maria's elbow. She screamed as the world went numb and her instincts took over. Her mind went into a haze where she could see but didn't see what was in front of her. She made decisions about which way to run but didn't think it through. She ran. Maria ran from L.A. She tried Phoenix, where her aunt and uncle lived. When she cried the news into Uncle Gustavo's chest, the surprise at seeing her at all gave way to sorrow. "Pobrecita," they said. "Of course you could stay here. We're so sorry to hear about Gabriella. This must be very hard on you." She didn't tell them how Gabriella, her closest family, was gunned down. She fed them some bullshit about Gabriella overdosing on too many pills and leaving a note. She didn't want to find out she was related to more Enricos. Maria was given the daybed in the sewing room. Yeah, this part of the family actually had the money for a whole room to dedicate to sewing, not cramming more people into. And she had her first hot shower in 3 days. The bus trip here was enough to make her vomit, and there was still the filth from John's party she hadn't washed off herself. Then there was the stain of that punk bitch Jatarius to wash off. Things weren't going to be easy, but this house was so much nicer than what she was used to. They had central air conditioning, not drippy window units. Aunt Floria kept the refrigerator full of food and free of black moldy spots. The house smelled vaguely of fresh flowers. Maria had no idea what to do next, but with an aunt and uncle who cared for her like her deadbeat mother never did, and far from L.A., this was the best place for her to be right now. She could be helped here. The next day, after a sleep that had been wanting to happen for days, she felt refreshed. She reached down into her purse to pull out her morning cigarette and felt around. Damn it, all out, she thought as she pulled out the empty pack. The only tobacco left to her was that little bit of tobacco gut that rattles around the bottom of a pack. She didn't put on anything beyond the boy shorts and tank top she was wearing as she grabbed her purse and sandals to go to the corner store. It wasn't that far, just a few houses down, but they didn't have her brand. She walked to the gas station down the street to get her Turkish silvers, and it felt good to not be walking around the hood. Maria knew you couldn't have nice things in the hood because people were always trying to take it. Maria knew you couldn't feel good about yourself there because people were always trying to take that too. She smoked a cigarette on the way back, and it was such a good breakfast that she stopped on the porch to finish a second before she went back into the pretty brick house. Putting the hot cherry out on the sole of her sandal, she flicked the button to a bare flower pot and opened the door to go back into the cool air conditioning. And then she saw her aunt and uncle on the floor, bent over on their elbows and knees. They had been taken out execution style. The warm blood was pooling underneath them. There was a sting of gunpowder in the room that 30 minutes ago was the most welcoming living room she had ever been in. They know she's here. They might even still be in the house. She couldn't stay here. Her aunt and uncle were the only people she knew in Phoenix. So she ran. And she left dead, sweet, gentle bodies that wouldn't hurt anybody in her wake. This Greyhound ride was even more bleak than the last. She wasn't just leaving behind her Gabriella. This time she was leaving behind the only family left that would talk to her. The 3 dead were the only members of her family she'd even want to talk to. The rest were still in LA and were just as low down as she was. The ticket she bought was as far from anything and anybody she knew as she could afford without selling off her loot. A little part of Maria wished she could have been killed instead of those she cared for. Her daily struggle to get by, to eat, to keep clothes on herself, and to not vomit every time she looked at her whore's face in the mirror, it was wearing on her soul. Some people doubt that we have souls. They'd think differently if they met somebody who had lost theirs. Hers was slipping away. And it felt all right after all the pain she'd caused. Maria got off the bus in the rundown bus station in downtown Memphis, even though her ticket bought her way to Richmond. As she walked through the trashed low building, she stepped onto Union Avenue. In the fading light of the summer sun, she didn't pay any mind to the crowd of people gathered on the sidewalks for the baseball game at the towering red brick stadium across the street. There was ice in her heart, and no amount of life in any city could thaw that ache. Memphis would be safe, for a while at least. People that live in LA only know about New York, Miami, and San Francisco, so there was no way they would think to look in this hick town in the middle of nowhere. She couldn't actually go to Richmond because it was an actual city and too close to D.C. She needed a place to stay. And even though it looked run down enough, she knew better than to stay at the Dive Motel right next to the bus station. If somebody was to come looking for her, that would be a little obvious. She looked around, looking for another option. There were 2 upscale hotels she could see from here. The problem with that kind of place is that they ask questions and want to see some ID, which ain't a problem for people who don't care if they're found. Maria ain't that kind of person. "You're looking for something, young lady?" croaked the wrinkled, sweaty old black guy sitting on the sidewalk. He was nibbling on some chips from a bag resting on the stained white undershirt covering his slim belly. Maria decided that he looked dirty enough to be useful. Leaning over to look him in the eyes, and not coincidentally to let her luscious melons dangle like a prize in his face, she said, "Hey, you know a quiet place we could go and have a good time?" The crackhead shook his head no, protesting, "Go on now, I ain't got no money." "But honey, you remind me of my daddy." "I liked my daddy," she said with lascivious interest. He heard the hint loud and clear, and his bloodshot eyes lit up his greasy face. His face erupted in a sea of wrinkles as he hooted in filthy triumph. "Come on!" The couple walked a few streets south until the crowds of presentable people disappeared. The wispy black man ducked between 2 disheveled brick buildings and said, "Come on, let's get with the happy," as he started to undo his pants. Maria rolled her eyes. Maybe he was too far gone to be any use after all. In the attempt to salvage this worthless piece of humanity, she countered, "But Daddy, this only works if there's a door you can close." "I'm going to scream so loud, I don't want the cops to catch us." The hobo stopped in mid-unzip, thinking. He looked her over. Tasty caramel thighs, full breasts, banging ass that looks like it's about to rip its way out of that skirt. Maybe this would be worth owing the guy at the motel $15. A tedious bus ride down Lamar Avenue later, past the blocks of shuttered retail strips and boarded up houses. The crackhead started pointing excitedly down the way. "That's your ticket to paradise, sweet thing." He trailed off. The bus continued trundling along, pulling up to its stop before he enticed Maria further by saying, "You've been a dirty girl, and Daddy's gonna spank you plenty." She smiled back at him, her thick lips glistening in the fluorescent light of the city bus. She knew there was no way in hell she was going to let this piece of shit touch her. "Don't think so, Daddy. Try this," she said, slipping her hand into his. He got confused on the cusp of angry until he looked down at the thing she left in his paw. A white, jagged rock. Crack! His day was made! As he shook and hooted in excitement to the mild annoyance of the 3 other people on the bus, he didn't even notice when Maria's sexy thick legs walked her tight ass down the steps of the bus and towards the Roach Motel he brought her to. That night, he'd even forget who he was when the high overtook him. From the street, the hotel looked like it was abandoned. But the fact of the matter is that for $15 per day, you can live like a roach king. And nobody who works there will ever recognize you when shown a picture by an investigator. Editor's note, the name of the hotel will not be revealed because I couldn't sleep at night if any of you thought it sounded like a good place to stay. Maria closed the hollow door and set the chain. She dropped her purse to the worn green shag carpet. The small, dark-veined mirror over the moldy sink reflected the lone woman illuminated by the desk lamp sitting on the floor. The image of the woman got bigger as she came closer. She was about to wash the grime of days on the Greyhound from her in the basin, there being no shower, but thought better of it. You would have too. The groan and creak the pipes made when she turned the knob just brought spits of brown grainy fluid into the biohazard of discoloration adorning the sink. Great. Just great, she thought to herself. Maria was disgusted by this place, and she had done plenty of disgusting things in her life, so she had an abundant frame of reference, a shameful amount of reference. The kind of shame that pokes its head out of the dark corner in your heart and starts gnawing into every feeling inside there. People like Maria learn how to choke that down and cut it off before they kill themselves. So they numb themselves from the inside out, trying not to feel the feelings that walk hand in hand with sin. Crack distracts the dregs of the streetwalkers. Cocaine is the province of the higher class fuckdolls. Crystal meth helps strippers get by. Maria was old-fashioned. She liked weed, laced with a bit of angel dust, so maybe she's not that old-fashioned. One hit into that shit, though, and she wouldn't care what the hell anybody thought about her. She hoped she'd be able to not care, too. She didn't care about the old crackhead she tricked into taking her here. He was fucked to begin with. She had to numb up her brain before the guilt of leaving her aunt and uncle swam back up her river of memory. Hell, who am I kidding? They never left her mind's eye. There they lay on the linoleum, a pool of blood commingling their once vital essences, joining them together in death like their love did in life. They had shown her kindness, and what did life pay them back with? Death. The last thoughts that must have swirled in their troubled minds, the terror they felt, the begging, the pleading they must have tried to sway their unnamed killers. Well, she thought, desperately grasping for anything good. On the bright side, at least they weren't raped or tortured first. Gabriella didn't have time to be terrified, Maria hoped. Maria only remembered hearing one gun scream, one shot, and then nothing from the woman who gave her shelter. At least hers was quick, as the drugs and the guilt and the fear fermented in her head. Not once did Maria feel bad for what happened to Enrico. He had been a douchebag before he got popped. Frankly, once she had time to think over what happened, he had been such a cockbag, she was kind of all right with what happened to him. Maria dwelt there for a week before she decided to make her move. Maria stepped down from the platform inside the growling bus onto the sidewalk in front of 201 Poplar, the heart of the Memphis criminal justice system. If she was going to find anyone to tell about the horrors she witnessed and get revenge for those she left behind, this was her best shot, she thought. Only she had known better. The building sure didn't look that impressive. Yeah, it was big, but it just looked like a bunch of mismatched brick boxes carelessly thrown in a pile. When she made it past the metal detector, she was even mildly disgusted by what she saw there. The multi-storied interior looked like the ugliest 1970s shopping mall ever conceived. The wildly distasteful use of colors offended this whore, who was used to the daring and sometimes well-thought-out architecture of California. After inquiring where she might report the litany of dead people somebody was leaving in her wake, well, she left that last bit out, and being helpfully misdirected to the wrong place 3 or 4 times, Maria Conchita Sanchez came face to face with the bane of government offices everywhere, an apathetic, fat black woman to talk to. Maria's blood was pumping, and her stomach fluttered so much she thought she'd pass out. She had plenty of experience trying to hide things from the police, not so much confessing things to them. But that was before someone wanted her dead. She pressed both sweaty palms against the faux wood countertop and inhaled deeply to steady herself. This deep, rending, inner personal struggle did not impress or interest the woman at the desk in the slightest. "May I help you?" she asked, almost in a personal attack. Out with it, sweetie. I need to report a crime." "Fill this out," the clerk said, tossing a scratched-up clipboard onto the counter. There were some forms on it. Maria grabbed the dull number 2 pencil from the jar on the counter and sat down to fill out the forms. She had expected something more dramatic to be happening right now. Instead, she was just filling out paperwork like she was applying for a job. The fluorescent light overhead flickered a moment, emphasizing the dull, white glare in the room. Maria finished detailed what had happened and went to hand the form back in. As the clerk took the clipboard, she said, "Thank you," with a note of finality. Maria nodded and waited. She watched the woman put the form in a basket and then go back to filling out a crossword puzzle. "Excuse me," said Maria. The black woman looked up at her. "Can I talk to someone now?" "If the department finds anything needing investigation, we will contact you within 7 to 10 business days." "What?" "Do you speak English? That's all we need from you. Have a good day." "Listen, my whole family is dead. I need help right now. I want to talk to someone now." The clerk rolled her eyes. "Listen, missy, we will call you if we need to. Now go before I call the migrant." "Okay, hold on, you two," came a deep, masculine voice. A beast of a blonde police officer stepped from behind Maria to the counter. "What's the problem here, Gladys?" the officer asked the irate clerk. "Officer Box, this woman is causing a ruckus. She done filled out the form." "All right, thanks, Gladys." Turning his focus to Maria, Officer Box said, "Why don't you tell me what your concern is, ma'am, and we'll see what we can do for you, okay?" Maria shook her head yes, vigorously, clenching her mouth shut in frustration. Walking away from the front desk, the man-mountain of a police officer took her statement from the basket and began to review it, asking Maria questions to help flesh out the situation at hand. When Maria looked as though she was going to lose herself in tears, the officer knew the right tactics to keep her engaged in the here and now. The blonde behemoth nodded his head after the 15-minute interview, thinking over what she had told him. "Ma'am, since this is an interstate situation, there's another officer I need to bring in on this. Do you mind waiting here for a minute?" She agreed. 10 minutes later, Officer Box returned with the promised help in tow. The new guy certainly didn't cut the profile of Officer Box. He was short, squat, toad-like, black with a speckle of moles and a thin mustache. He didn't have to be impressive. If he could help, that's all Maria could ask for. "Hey, so you're Maria Conchita Sanchez? You're the one who filed the report about California and Arizona?" he asked in a hushed tone. Maria nodded. "All right, come along with me." "Officer Box, I got it," the chubby man said as he stepped off to lead Maria away. "This is a special case, and we're moving you to a more secure facility for your protection." He moved her along down some corridors, with her only thought being to hold back the tears that wanted to come out. Unlike a lot of Latinas, Maria preferred to keep her business under control in public. He said his real office was in another building, and so he drove her further into downtown, past the towering buildings that were built toward the sky when Memphis was trying to make something of itself. As he parked in the garage adjacent to City Hall, an escort of 2 black, well-dressed gentlemen walked to the car, opening the doors for both Maria and her driver. They got out of the car and walked in silence towards the building. It didn't escape Maria that she was surrounded by this man and his assistants, and her hackles began to rise. Her host didn't say another word, and she didn't know how much she wanted to ask right now. It was getting dark now, and the shadows of the sun setting beyond the river were falling across the city. My, thundered the cagey baritone of the very tall, very old, white-headed black man that walked into the office whence Maria had been led. He bounced on the balls of his feet as he stalked into the room on the second floor of City Hall. He had a sly look about him, and a physique that bespoke one who enjoyed using his fists with great force, even in old age. Maria went to stand up from her chair in front of the great wooden desk in the mayor's office, but the man motioned for her to sit the fuck down. He lingered in that commanding stance for a moment, letting his final order set the mood for his unexpected meeting with this delectable and oh so in trouble piece of ass. He was smiling his toothy, white smile at Maria, but she felt danger fill the room just before the man who brought her here opened the door for him. It wasn't hard to tell he was pleased as punch. For Maria, it was harder to tell why. He spoke first. Well, how you doing, honey?" he asked, his gaze drifting from the unpolished nails on her feet, up her legs to her bulging bosom and those sweet, naturally dusted mocha lips. So you already saw the name on the desk, so we can cut with the introductions. While Maria had been scared and numb on the trip to the lair in which she found herself, she had not been so oblivious as to miss that she was in the mayor of Memphis's office. The name on the desk display was one that had long been cursed and blessed by the people of Memphis. Duke Willie had been written there for almost 20 years. In a city as violent and deadly as Memphis, many people had been born, lived, and died under the reign of this man. If he had his way, there would be generations more like that. Maria's mouth moved to speak, but Duke Willie placed a finger from his hand that was big enough to palm a watermelon over his lips to shush her. The man isn't done talking yet, girl. Wait your turn, he said, walking to the edge of the desk. He took a seat on one cheek, one leg still standing on the immaculately kept carpet. He locked eyes with her, a somber tone in his voice. You've come a long way, baby. My boy Devon tells me you've been in some shit all across the country. Do you know why? Maria's lips moved on their own, like they could answer the question by themselves. Nothing came out. She stopped and looked down. She clenched her eyes shut. Sometimes the simplest answers really are the best ones. I fucked with the wrong nigga, she quietly said. Duke Willie roared in laughing approval of her answer. His chest heaved with the surprised mirth he found at those words, but he managed to start calming down, nodding his head in agreement. Oh, girl, I guess you're right about that. Oh, he trailed off, dabbing at the corners of his eyes to catch the minuscule tears. Man, girl, you don't even know what you done did, do you? You thought you could jack some ice from some dumb nigga and that would be that. Maria's eyes shot up from the floor. She hadn't mentioned anything about the bling she had jacked from Jatarius' room in the police report. She hadn't even mentioned Jatarius. She had only talked about the murders, and let's face it, she knew there were plenty of people she had burned enough to make them want to fuck her up. How did he know about that? Well, since you know why you're here, you deserve to know that I got to give you what's coming to you. See, you fucked with my boys, and you finally got sloppy. Seriously, Conyo, of all the places you try to get help, you come to the PD in my city? You don't know shit, do you? Maria stared at him blankly. The hell was he talking about? Duke Willie eased his full-toothed smile. Tell you what, as a favor to you before I turn you over for the nastiness to come, let me slip into something a little more comfortable. I'll let you go out on top. It'd be a shame for a fine piece like yourself to not go out feeling like a woman for one last time, he said, winking at her. Her stomach turned. Yeah, what she only hoped was the beginning of a massive and lethal internal hemorrhage. Duke Willie stood to go to the private facilities in his office and get more comfortable, and then paused, looking at Maria's beautiful face. You know you could be a New York runway model. So, to summarize what just happened, 1, Maria apparently walked into the hands of people who want to do horrible things to her for ripping off that punk trick Jatarius. 2, they're probably going to torture and kill her. 3, she's about to have less than consensual sex with this filthy old crook as her last hurrah before she dies. Fantastic. The door to the mayor's private quarters closed shut. A thick breeze from outside wafted through the white curtains in the room. Maria was alone. She cried. Sitting here, she knew she had placed the noose around her own neck. She had caused the death of those near her, and now she was going to join them. All for some fucking money. As a whore, Maria was pretty numb inside as it was, just to survive. Having a heart was too much to bear in how she lived. She wiped away some snot and tried to stifle her crying. She doubted Duke Willie was going to be a delicate lover. But fuck that asshole. She wasn't going to let him get off on seeing her crying and begging for mercy. Just time to shut it all down inside. If she already felt dead, it wouldn't really matter when it came. The dulled sound of Duke Willie singing "Do-ba-dee-doo" could be heard coming through the door. She stood up from the place she had been ordered to sit. Standing up straight makes it easier to be defiant. She walked to the window. The curtains parted in the breeze, revealing the cloak of night that had fallen on the world outside. She saw the prison bar-like facade that wrapped all around the upper floors of City Hall, and she saw the quiet plaza beyond it. Looking down, She saw the river rock concrete ground. There was nothing in her way, nothing holding her in this room with the Duke. She jumped. Damn the fall. While she had never been good at gymnastics, she aimed for a head-first landing. Bracing for death, she felt a hard jolt impact her, shocking her so much she couldn't even yell out for the pain it caused. The world went black. And that's the end of part 2 of The Runner. Slight spoiler, there is a part 3 to come. I hope you've enjoyed this reading, and if you have, please give me a like and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading those, and I respond to every one of them. If you're interested in a copy of Memphis Dirty, Tales from the Dirty South for yourself, they are available on Amazon, link in the description below. I thank you for spending your time with me and JT Davenport in The Runner, and I look forward to seeing you back for part 3. Until then, I wish you nothing but the best.